All right. Thank you all for coming. So I'm going to dive way deep compared to what we were just talking about, fintech ecosystem, and talk specifically about Plaid, but specifically about one organization, team within Plaid, our product team. So for context, my name is Baker Shogry. I lead the product team here at Plaid, and I think I need a clicker, so I'm going to have to go through this. Oh, there it is. And so I want to talk about a couple of main things to cover, often specific to Plaid and our experience over the last 6 years, but hopefully extensible to the organizations a lot of you are building, places that you work, or hopefully they'll get you excited about product here because we need a lot more product managers and want to talk to everyone who's interested. So product evolves as the context around it evolves. It's been extremely true at Plaid. I think it's generally accepted that product manager is a role. It doesn't have a universal definition. Different companies define it in very different ways. A Microsoft product manager is very different from a Google product manager, is very different from a Facebook product manager in the responsibilities they have and the roles they have on the team. But it's also, and this is what we've experienced in spades at Plaid, is that product manager evolves from stage to stage within a single company, at least as we've experienced it. And one point too to remember, and I think it's actually colored a lot of how we've approached building out the function here, is that PMs aren't necessary to build great products. Plaid had product market fit, a great team, great customers, delivering a lot of value before we had anybody with the title of product manager. And that leads to how has product evolved here. Product has grown changed from being done as a village to just us defining the role and having one person doing it to now having a team of product managers. But that aligns very closely with a specific stage and a specific context for us that we've had to work through. So I wanted to share kind of what that journey looked like. So a brief history of Plaid. So William talked about what they were doing when they started, but in 2012 it was William and Zach. We've grown pretty steadily since then, and not until years T-3, 2, and 1 did we have anybody doing product. So we were about 60 people total before we had anybody doing product management as a function or a specific role, and we've grown to 7 today. So the first phase of that, 2012 to 2015, was we were doing product work. We didn't have product managers, but we didn't just ignore product as a thing or responsibility. We were doing product as a village. So from the time up until we had 40 people really, product was everyone's responsibility. To Zach and William's credit, they hired a lot of really, really amazing people who could do their own functions like engineering, like platform or growth, and think really thoughtfully about the product and how it should work so that we actually deliver something that customers wanted and valued. Some of the things that made that possible are that we had really accessible customers. So we were a team of almost entirely engineers building a product for engineers to use. We had a very small go-to-market function. We didn't really have anybody focused on go-to-market until very late in this process. And so coordination was easier. It was also easier to talk to our customers and get immediate feedback. The loops were really tight. In 2016, 2017, the organization had changed enough, and we actually started to define what product was as its own role. So at this point, 2016 happens, and now we have go-to-market. We have a lot more customers. We're in a lot more markets. We don't start off the week every Monday with everybody in the company in the room going around talking about what they're working on. And all this means that context is harder to maintain around the product decisions that we're making. We actually now have data around these decisions that we didn't have before that we can incorporate into how we make these decisions. Our projects are just definitionally more cross-functional because we actually have functions other than engineering, and coordination gets a lot harder. So what we did at that point was we hired our first product manager. So I came over from doing a operations role, which at a small software company is just a miscellaneous category. We don't have supply chains or warehouses we had to worry about, but came over to focus specifically on product and figuring out what that meant at Plaid. We indexed there for organizational knowledge, and the entire time we're just thinking about, as we started to grow the team from just one person to a handful more, how do we complement the existing village that exists today at Plaid? So we didn't come in with, oh, unless we have a product manager, we can't build something. We came in knowing that teams were going to be successful and we could build great products without them. So product had to justify and prove that it could make teams more successful than they could be otherwise. The next biggest evolution for us is actually having product as a team instead of just a couple of people. So Jesse was number 2, he's back there. But now in this context, we did a lot of things at Plaid changed. So when we were smaller, we had project-based engineering teams, which meant we could do any project we wanted and we would just assemble from any engineer could work on anything. I'm simplifying a lot, but we'll go with it. But it made we could be incredibly flexible in the projects that we took down, but it made it a lot more difficult to build systems that we maintained and grew over time, or problems that we wanted to know deeply and plan for on a longer term. So now we had teams that were committed to different areas and parts of our entire system and could think about them in different ways, and we wanted to complement that with product managers. We had even more ambitious opportunities as the size of our connected network of applications and banks and end users grows. We get to think about problems in entirely different ways. We have now partners in a bunch of different markets that we can learn from. And now what's I think most exciting for me is that we have a team of PMs. So now it's not just one person understanding or 2 people understanding how we fit into the organization, but we get to actually act as a team, albeit we don't get to work together on a day-to-day basis. We're so thinly staffed from a product perspective that we never have 2 product managers working on anything together, but we do come together to learn as much as possible. When we think about building out the team, we're looking for complementary strengths. We have a really nice balance today in that the team's about 50-50 hired internally versus hired externally, 50-50 former software engineering versus more business backgrounds. Where we want to maintain that balance so that we can learn from each other in the best possible way. We've aligned with the rest of the organization, those teams I've talked about. And I think one of the biggest things is that we've really started stepping up to taking responsibility for Plaid's mission overall. So across all this, product has changed a lot. There have been a few constants. I think these are constants that probably ring true across more organizations than not. But product managers at Plaid, throughout this whole process, and will continue to do, focus on results. They're held responsible for delivering them here. They aren't enablers. They don't apply grease to problems. They take responsibility for the actual outcome at the end of the day. We look to product managers to instill confidence throughout the organization. Engineers, growth people, anybody looks to the product manager on a project to understand that where they're investing their time, their effort, their careers is going to be successful. So product managers have to instill that confidence, but they have to earn respect most importantly. Product managers don't know, they don't make excuses, and they do know what's next, what step Plaid needs to take next in pretty much all situations. Even if it is, we don't know the answer, we need to understand the answer. That's an okay next step. So that's a quick run through of how product has evolved at Plaid. Product, I'm sure, looks very different here than it looks at a lot of other organizations. We try to learn and take the best parts of a lot of conversations and helpful advice and guidance from people across fintech, across technology in San Francisco and beyond. But we're learning a lot, so looking for people who can learn with us. But with that, any questions I can answer about product at Plaid, or we can pull back up and talk about Plaid's products too, whatever's on your mind. Yeah.
Did you feel like the timing was right, or too soon or too late to have a product team?
I think it was right. It definitely wasn't too late. Yeah, I think the team could have done fine without product for longer. We have really strong product-minded engineering managers who care a lot about the product. We have so our growth team, which takes responsibility for managing our customers and working closely with them, incredibly product-minded, does a great job of channeling product feedback directly to people who can act on it. So the organization's pretty effective. I think we'll maybe take our week-long product vacation at some point as a team and go somewhere fun, but the organization will be fine without it. So, even going back to when we first added product, I think another year would have been fine. Hopefully, we were able to accelerate where we got to, but I don't think we would have left a little bit of opportunity on the table. Hopefully, but the company would have still, I think, found its way pretty effectively.
You see, is that biggest challenges as you grow the team?
The biggest challenge is, honestly, it's understanding when the context has changed significantly that we need to start acting a little bit differently, both in the types of people that we hire for the roles and the types of people who will come in and change how successful the team can be in a really dramatic way, and also just the assumptions and the processes that we want to build over time. How we use process at Plaid is always a double-edged sword. It's really nice to start preventing downside in areas. It's really bad at enabling us to be more creative and capture new opportunity. And a lot of times, what stands in between us and new opportunity is process that we set up before to prevent downside that we used to care more about. The context changes, and understanding when the fences that we put up to contain important things are no longer relevant and need to be torn down. That's been a big challenge and will continue to be. So I'd say like that in terms of how we operate, but the main thing is just building the team. We have and will continue to err on the side of not hiring PMs when we're unsure because of the responsibility and the accountability we want to give to them in the organization, which makes it really hard to find people who we want to come in and endow that sort of responsibility with on day one. But the good news is, and it's starting to actually, we're starting to experience it, I think, is that when we hire really great people early on and we take the time and wait longer, those sorts of people beget more sorts of people like that. So it's almost like, if we just hire more people sooner, we can achieve a linear rate of really great people. And if we take our time, we can make that exponential. It's going to cost us in the short term, but more great people will enable us to find even more great people in the future in ways we wouldn't otherwise, I think, be able to do.
I'm curious, when you're a PM at Plaid, what kind of data is interesting to you? Because what's the KPI for your product? Because like your funnel seems really short in the sense that compared with normal SaaS, where it'd be like, oh, I just want to re-engage them, have retention, have the monetization metrics further. It's like they have the data, they do stuff, you don't see a lot of them. So what's the KPIs for them like that?
Yeah. So what are the KPIs for the products, given it's an API and it's hard to observe interactions, stuff like that? An API is an interface just like a graphical user interface in a lot of ways. So you can infer a lot about how people are interacting with it and whether or not we designed it in a way that's helpful. So there's a degree of that, but nowhere near as rich as other contexts, for sure. We care a lot about, the numbers that we think about mostly are the number of connected users, end users on the application. That's probably our top number because it's indicative of both our ability to fulfill our promise to our customers, make a successful connection to a financial institution, return information timely, but also that we are helping our customers build valuable applications for end consumers. And if end consumers are getting genuine, sustained value from the experiences that we're helping power, they will spread those, they'll use them more, our customers will be successful, they'll be more interested in connecting their accounts to other institutions or other applications over time, and the cycle will continue. So that's a big one. We care about the number of developers, on the same level, because when you think about how financial services is going to evolve, and William talked a lot about this too, the applications that will result in step changes in how people interact with their money are probably going to be offered by companies that don't exist yet. At least that's been the experience over the last few years in the kind of lifetime of Plaid. And those companies will push the system forward in really compelling ways. And so making sure that developers can build things, even if they're small and even if we're working with them when they have no business and dozens of users, is still really important for us because you don't get, the way that financial services works in the US, at least for now, you don't get things like Zelle without Venmo. You don't get Schwab Intelligent Advisor without Betterment. You don't get Chase's new free trading application without Robinhood. You have to force change in ways by delivering interesting products, and we want to make sure that developers have as few barriers to do that. So this is thoughts on organizing product for platform versus features, or however else. It's been tricky. We're just now at the point where we have enough product managers to have this problem, so it's really exciting. We organize most closely to constituencies, given Plaid's business. And I think that aligns with how we provide value to our partners, our customers, our end users, and back to financial institutions. So I think if you're trying to get down to the root, it's something about how does the company deliver value and making sure people can see value delivery through as much as possible from end to end. So for us, we have we orient a lot around 3 groups: consumer experience, developer experience, and then financial institutions or data access. So those are, so we have people who can really live with those constituencies, understand how we interact with them, our relationship with them, and work on deepening it over time. That's been how it's worked best at Plaid. For platform teams, we haven't quite figured that out yet from a product perspective. Data access for us is a platform team. Everything else that we do depends on us having really great integrations that are reliable. And access to data is still our primary value proposition. But outside of that, we don't yet have product managers working on teams that would otherwise be considered infrastructure or platform teams. I hope we will at some point, but today we're still getting there. Yeah.
So you talked about the 3 different constituency groups that you cater to, of banks and developers and users. And I'm interested in what's your guys' thought process on research? Do you have user research teams focusing to the 3 of them, and how does your product team plug in to be educated in all of them? Yeah.
So it's a great question. So how do we think about research, user research across each of these constituencies, and how does product plug in with that effort? So we don't have a separate research team. We aspire to at some point, I'm sure, but right now product managers need to own understanding what research needs to get done in order to inform the decision, and then actually executing that. And then we partner mostly with our other teams that live closely to those audiences. So for example, Seema's team, our business development team, spends most of their time with financial institutions. So when we're so Jesse, who works most closely with them, partners very closely with business development to understand what we're hearing from financial institutions, and how we can evolve with them. The same goes for when we think about developer experience and our customers. Our growth team lives with our customers. So we spend a lot of time working with them to make sure we're getting feedback directly. And end users is something that we're just, we've taken more of an experimental approach and probably haven't had the bandwidth to do more in-person qualitative than we would like. It's a really big part of the value proposition that we provide to our developers. So we're investing a lot in trying to build out more of a pipeline there. But today it's product has to own that, like they own everything else on the critical path to success of the projects that they're working on. So a lot of times that means organizing the calls and writing out the interview guide and doing all the research that I've been told other teams have awesome research departments to help them with, and we'll get there. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.